We are still having a good time. Day one of Advertising Week New York. This is the AW360 Live program, and I am joined right now by Melanie Shrefflier of Cassandra. Welcome.
Hi there, thank you for having me.
So I was looking back, and this afternoon you were at part of a session called Brands, the New Icons of Culture. Now, I know from talking to you that you are big on culture shifts. So let's talk about culture shifts.
Yes, absolutely. One of the favorite things that we do at Cassandra is actually watch how culture is changing and actually leverage that as a way to tell brands where things are going, how they need to actually evolve their businesses, change their strategies, and actually exploit the white space that we're seeing as young people are actually driving brands. So when we think about, say, the past decade, for example, there are a number of different trends that we can talk about that were driven by millennials specifically. One that's pretty common to everybody is the idea that they shifted from products to experiences, and they started to want to spend more time and more money with experiences than with products. Of course, that had huge implications for brands, had huge implications for retailers as they had to figure out how they were going to take what they'd been doing for decades all along and reinvent that for this new generation that was coming up with a new way of engaging with brands and with products. Another interesting thing that we know is how young people's relationships with brands have changed over time. And that one I think is really interesting for marketers across the board, because now they're not actually just saying, okay, I'm coming to you when I need to buy something. I'm coming to you when you're a food brand and I'm hungry. Instead, their relationship with brands is much more 24/7. So it's a challenge because now brands have to be available 24/7.
Right.
We actually say that 69% of young people, millennials specifically, want brands to be available to them throughout the day, always on, because they're always on. But it's also kind of changing the conversation that they're having with brands. You can't just simply say, okay, I want to sell you something all the time, 24/7. That's not what they do in their lives. So really you have to think about that opportunity as how can you change your offering and think about plugging into the white space in their lives and actually engage them in ways that are maybe outside your comfort zone and even outside your category.
Right. So, such as, what are some of those ways that they would engage? Like, if I'm dealing with a brand, if I have, and bad about this, and I'm not a millennial, but I'm close. I'm definitely a Gen Xer though. But I feel the technology, and if something disappoints me with the brand, the first place I want to go is Twitter and start saying, what happened here? This is a problem. Let's do something about it.
Sure. You actually can get that immediate response from a brand.
Right.
You don't want to know what's fascinating though. With millennials and actually Gen Z as well, they're more likely to tweet about positive responses that they had with positive interactions they had with brands.
We're the complainers.
Than negative ones. It's Gen Xers, I tell you.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting way for brands to actually kind of reconceive what their core offering is to a young person. It's not necessarily just a product. It has to be much more about how can I change your life in some positive way. So we're seeing actually retailers move from beyond just being a retail environment and instead becoming a gathering place for young people. So think about the way that Urban Outfitters, for example, has sort of reinvented themselves. They always have their core business of selling products to young people and sort of selling a little bit of a lifestyle, which was definitely something we saw in the past decade. Mm-hmm. The lifestyle brand becoming a thing, standing for a lifestyle meant that you had an immediate connection with the young consumer. But now actually evolving that and saying, how can I do more than just stand for a lifestyle and actually provide a young person a different kind of experience? So Urban Outfitters is creating these sort of unique spaces where, say for example in Austin, they've got this giant courtyard where they'll bring in food trucks on the weekend, and it becomes a place where you can go, hang out, sit, even if you don't plan on buying anything, even if you have no interest in retail at the moment. It gives you a new reason to come into the store and hang out and spend some time maybe with your friends or meeting new people. And it gives you actually an offline way to engage, which is another key thing that we're seeing now kind of on the cusp of that long decade that millennials have had, like building up and growing their sort of digital immersion, their digital profile. Now they're actually starting to want to take a step back and actually have a little bit less digital immersion because they realize how that can be very negative for their in-person interactions, and having more of those in-person interactions and feeling closer to a sense of community.
You know, it's interesting. I teach a college course, and we had this set at the beginning of the semester. They always sit us down and say, okay, here are the things that you need to know. And they gave us a quiz, and this room full of instructors who span a few different generations. And they give us this quiz, and it's talking about the Gen Z, And we're answering the questions much like these people are millennials. And one of the biggest things was, how do they prefer to communicate? And it was surprising that how much of that more face-to-face time that they want.
It's so fascinating, actually. Gen Z is probably the most self-aware generation I feel like I've met in my time studying different generations. We actually just recently had an event at our offices where we brought in a Gen Z panel, and we were talking to them about how they spend their time, what they shop for. And one young girl was actually saying that she recognizes how much time that she was spending on social media, and that she couldn't stop herself from wanting to always be checking, wanting to always spend more time on social media.
Right.
And being cognizant of that, actually chose to delete the social media app off of her phone so that she wouldn't even be tempted, and hasn't yet actually even reintroduced it. So I think that they're very self-aware. More so than millennials, who were the digital adopters. They were the ones who acquired this technology when they were well into their adolescence. Gen Z is actually, been doing it from infancy, swiping since they've been a child.
It's funny you say swiping, because I have 2 kids, and my daughter, my youngest, when she was, it was pre-K, so it was before she started school. She's only 8 now, but we were sitting there on the couch, looking at the laptop, going through some photographs on the laptop, and the first thing she did was stick her finger out onto the screen and started doing like that, and she couldn't understand why the pictures didn't move.
You want to hear something even crazier?
Yeah.
I was in Gotham Market recently, and was with a coworker who had her daughter with her, and they have an Amazon Alexa Echo speaker at home, and the daughter wanted to change the music, and so she's shouting at Alexa, "Play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," and is surprised that Alexa is not responding, even though obviously Alexa is not there in Gotham Market to cater to the whim of a 2-year-old.
They just expect the technology.
It's inherent in their system. They're actually thinking very differently about engaging. I think that what's going on with AI right now is clearly going to greatly change how they behave with the world, how they behave with technology, and for that matter, how they behave with brands. They're very comfortable with the idea of technology answering them,
okay.
And I think that it makes a stronger opportunity for brands to actually start thinking about using chatbots and using other types of services to figure out how they can actually tap into young people, because they don't mind that it's a chatbot that they're talking to.
Sure. That's interesting. Yes, and I can tell you that is a huge shift right there, because I recently had an experience with a running shoe that I absolutely love, and I was being nice, I wasn't complaining, but I was asking them because they changed what their website said about my favorite shoe, and I said, well, is this a trail shoe or is it a road shoe? Just give me an answer. And then all of a sudden I get these responses back. It says, well, you can get this trail shoe and here's a link, and you can get this this road shoe and here's a link, and I'm like, that's not what I asked.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a ways to go yet before it's perfect.
Yeah, so I finally said, then I got Gen X on them, and I got mad. I said, you're not listening. This is not what I asked. And they sent me a free pair of shoes, so I'm all right.
Oh, there you go. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. Is there any last thing that you want to tell brands who are trying to prepare for this more recent culture shift?
Sure. I think that one of the biggest changes that we're seeing is, we had that big push in the last decade for brands to become lifestyle brands. And there's going to be a next iteration of that. And as we look at the way that Gen Z behaves, they're very, we call them the doers, okay. Whereas millennials were dreamers. They were very pie in the sky, had a lot of ideas, didn't always realize all of them. Gen Z actually has, a specific goal, a specific mandate that they want to achieve. They really want to see themselves making progress. And brands now have to kind of shift from just being a lifestyle brand and saying, hey, we stand for this, come hang out with us,
right.
And instead start to think of themselves as betterment brands. How can you actually help a young person become a better, happier person? So thinking about providing solutions, tools, support to help them grow into the person that they want to be. And that's not just now while they're in adolescence and growing into adulthood. That's going to be a lifelong mission for them.
So much to think about, and that's going to help me with my college students too, I think. Melanie, thank you for joining me today on the stage.
Thank you, it was lovely.
Absolutely. And this is BJ Smith. I'm signing off for AEW 360 for now. We'll be right back with more from Advertising Week New York.